95.3 WBCK, Wine Not happens tomorrow, and we couldn't be more excited. Our indoor wine festival that happens at this time for the last 3 years has sold out every year, and folks are very excited about it, as are we. And we thought it might be apropos at this point to bring in a friend who is very well versed in wine and talk about the right frame of mind headed into Wine Not tomorrow. And even if you're not going, this advice is good. Terry Stingley is with us today, a good friend and in many circles known as Terry the Wine Guru. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, Richard Piet. Nice to talk to you again.
Boy, it's nice to talk to you. So how does one become a wine guru?
I'm still scratching my head over that one. I wake up every morning like, how did I get here? It's like that old Talking Heads song. But no, it's just a lot of luck. I mean, the wine guru obviously is just a fun thing that we do. Back in the days when Richard and I spent a lot of time on the air together, we'd market this idea of getting people excited about wine knowledge. And I spent time in India, so it kind of worked into that whole thing of as a yoga teacher and the wine guru. But basically, you're talking about 35 years in the wine trade. I started when I was just in my early 20s. I'd just come back from the Navy in Europe and had traveled to all the wine-producing countries, if not the regions. And so I had that going for me. I was able to land a good job back in New Orleans. And 35 years later, I'm still in the wine trade and picked up a few things here and there. And I even got a certification, a level 1 certification along the way. So there's a little something going there, I guess, but certainly not a wine expert. I've never claimed to be one of those, but maybe a little something picked up along the way.
Well, and this is how this happens. People do study this from start to finish and do begin to understand how we should pursue wine, maybe is the right word. And this is knowledge that people need to know because I hear it so much. People say, yeah, I go places and there's a wine list, or I go to a friend's house and there's wine, but I don't know what to try. They seem intimidated by it.
Right. The intimidation is the big downside of the entire wine trade. It always has been. There is a mystique about wine. I mean, it goes back into the darkest histories of our early humanity. Wine and humanity are synonymous. As long as there have been humans, we've been squeezing grapes and causing it to ferment and drinking the juice and going, this stuff's pretty good. So it's been part of our human history. So it does behoove us. It lends to the adventure of our experience here on Earth to know something about this grape that's been a constant companion in our evolution as we've gone along. So it's fun, and there's a reason that it's so popular. I mean, 3 years going in and the Why Not now, that's fantastic. And this is happening all over the country, all over the world. There's a true renaissance. There's a golden age of wine that we're living in. So if you put in a little bit of effort, and I've always said this, wine has given me way more than I ever give to the world of wine. So a little bit of effort, there's some basic skills we can develop, and it becomes this adventure that adds to the enjoyment of life.
And we'll talk more about that, too, in a second. Does it surprise you that we are in this golden age, that the popularity of wine, and for that matter, beer, too, has just ascended so much?
Yeah, it really doesn't surprise me because, for one thing, it has been part of our history. Beer goes back a long way as well. There's always been a debate which one's older, beer or wine. I always kind of err toward wine because there's not as much effort involved with wine. You crush grapes, they ferment. You got an alcoholic beverage there. Beer takes a little more manipulation than that. But beer built the pyramids, so that's how long beer's been around. So there is this part of human history that is again synonymous with fermented beverages, and then. We've come to a point in this world where it's kind of crazy out there, and all these great wine regions are popping up every night, just like craft breweries. There's new wineries coming on board. The world wants their fermented beverage. We want it. The world's crazy. And again, it does add to the enjoyment when life seems very stressful and a little chaotic. Wine is one of those things that can bring us together at a table. Peace, harmony, love, goodwill, all those things. So, yeah, a little bit of wine knowledge goes a long way in making the world a better place to live in.
We're talking one day ahead of Wine Not with Terry, the wine guru Stingley. We'll take this break and come back on 95.3 WBCK. 95.3 WBCK. Tomorrow is Wine Not, the big indoor wine festival, and we look so forward to this every year, and I know a lot of you do too, and you'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there mingling around too, and maybe we'll get the chance to meet and talk. But really, what is the main thing is that you get to go around and talk with winemakers lots of them, some from Michigan, some from elsewhere, and try their wine. And Terry Stingley is really well-versed in helping us understand how we might go about this. In fact, I have to tell you, I speak from experience here because I was one of those people that said, I don't know, what do I try? I like the sweet stuff. You know, that's what a lot of us say in the beginning. And
Right.
Terry said, let me help you. And he did. And now when I go to a restaurant, I say, bring me some Malbec because it knocks you right in the kisser. You know, I like it like that. So it really is interesting. I think, folks, if you're not clear about how to go about this, now is the time to figure it out, especially if you're coming to Wine Not tomorrow at the Radisson in downtown Kalamazoo. So what if somebody's in that spot, Terry, and they say, I'm going to be in this room with all these wine experts and I'll get to taste all these wines. How do I know what to ask for?
Yeah, that's a great question. But first of all, congratulations that you put yourself in that environment to learn. And if we stay in our comfort zone our whole lives, we never grow, we never expand, we never learn anything. So get out there. That's the perfect place to start. A wine show like Wine Night, perfect place to start because you have exposure at very minimal cost to yourself to some wonderful wines. You can ask questions of experts that are really on hand to help you through that process. So, everybody's going to take you by the hand and guide you through it. And for those that have been through the process, they can look at you at this point and nod their heads knowingly like, no, this is where it starts. This is a good place to go. You obviously like wine or you wouldn't be going in the first place. But like Richard said, you might be pursuing those sweeter whites. It's an organic experience. You don't have to rush it. Your palate will evolve. Richard's did. Mine did. I started with sweet whites. So there will come a point where your palate just says, I want to try something else, and that comes through the exposure wine. Get out there and try what you're comfortable with. Push the comfort zone a little bit. Try a less sweet but a fruity red, maybe like a Pinot Noir. That's the transition red wine from whites to reds for most people because it's light and fruity. So all those things will come to you at the wine show.
Let's talk about that. From sweetest to driest, where do we start with the sweetest, like a Riesling or something?
Yeah, so almost, when you talk about white wines, that's where we'll look to the sweeter stuff to begin with. Riesling is a good example of that, and it grows very well in Michigan, and I'm sure you'll have plenty of exposure to Michigan sweet wines tomorrow while you're there. And those Rieslings are a good place to start, and they can range from dry to very sweet to very dry. So there's a gamut there. And so even if you start with Riesling, you start with very sweet Riesling, you can work your way up the dryness scale just with that one grape. So it's a great grape to explore on its own as far as letting your palate develop over the course of one time. And that's just one grape. So the adventure of wine embraces so much. There's so much to talk about, so much to get involved with, and that's the adventure of it. But you can really start with just that one grape and watch your palate evolve from sweet to dry.
So if you're saying you're a sweet wine drinker and you want to try and venture out from there, what's a recommendation that is a next step or maybe two steps?
So if once we get into the transition to red wine, a lot of people naturally look at those Pinot Noir type wines, the light fruity wines, the Gamay, the Beaujolais, which just came out, are a perfect example of those light fruity wines that are quick and easy to drink. There's a lot of appeal for them. To the undeveloped palate, we want more fruit than we want dry tannins. So you're kind of looking for those fruitier experiences, and that's why the lighter red wines are a good transition into those big, deep, heavy, tannic laced red wines that we get to when we talk about Cabernet Sauvignon. So start with the Pinot Noir and then work your way into you get to the Malbecs and then up to the Cabernet Sauvignons, etc.
Okay. Now, how should someone sip wine? If you've not done it before, there's a way to go about it, right?
If you want to educate your palate, there is a way. We use what's called the 4-step deductive tasting method that every sommelier in the world uses every single time we taste wine. I don't sit and taste wine the whole time I'm having wine, but I want to taste it initially and then I'll drink it. But first I want to hear the story the wine has to tell. So the tasting is a 4-step process. We look at the wine to see if it's obviously discolored or something, and we can look at how bright and beautiful it is, and then we smell it. That's 85% of the tasting process is done in the nose. We use the nose to smell all the nuances. And then we taste it. The third step is to taste the wine to verify what we smelled on the nose, because the palate, the tongue, is actually very limited. There's only about 6 tastings that we can actually taste. But in the sense of smell, why it's so important is because we can remember thousands of things from our olfactory memory. So that sense of smell is so critical to actually tasting everything, including wine. And then the 4th step of this tasting process, after you've tasted the wine, is to look at that finish, say, wow, this is a nice finish. What I use the 4-step for is to say, am I going to buy this wine again? Do I like this wine? Would I buy it again? So just examine it from that perspective. And it's so simple, but if you get in the habit of doing those 4 things every single time you step up to a glass of wine, you'll develop that so-called muscle memory, if you will, that will help you to achieve a kind of a world-class palate in less time than you might imagine.
We're talking with Terry, the wine guru Stingley. We're coming right back on 95.3 WBCK. 95.3 WBCK. Wine Not is tomorrow. And if you've been looking forward to it, and who hasn't, then we've been talking a little bit to you, and as well to folks who might like to try wine, but maybe you're not even attending tomorrow. That's okay. We're talking with Terry Stingley. Terry, the wine guru Stingley, about how you might go about that. You know, some folks are listening, and I imagine that, and I'm guilty of this too, now that I know what I like, I stay there. What kind of frame of mind should we be in to try something new? I mean, I admit, I was at dinner with friends last weekend, and one of my friends said, "Bring a bottle of Malbec," and I almost jumped on the table because I was so excited. Somebody else wanted the same wine.
Right.
We really should open our minds, though, to new and different things, right?
That's a great point. So that and you speak to the adventure of it, right? So you can't have an adventure by sticking with the same thing. You ride a horse, and it's like, I'm going to keep riding this horse forever. Well, maybe you want to ride a dragon next time because it's an adventure. So let's hop off the Malbec. But along the way, the process is helpful if we develop a little bit of a vocabulary, so that when we talk about wine with others, especially to people that are going to sell us wine or they're going to help us to choose a wine, that we have a little bit of a vocabulary that says, okay, I want something that has a little oak in it, or like, for you, example, with Malbec. What do you like about Malbec, Richard? Whatever that is that you like, just say one thing that you like about it. Tell me.
I like the peppery strength of it.
Oh, I love it. Peppery strength of it. So right off the bat, I think of other wines that have a peppery strength to them. California Zinfandel would come to mind, which I think would be a nice transition, a little adventure out of the ordinary of the Malbec for you. But there are other things that come to mind. So by developing a little bit of a vocabulary, basically by paying attention to what you're tasting and being able to pass that information along to a wine steward or a wine host somewhere, that's so helpful, and that will let you expand your own repertoire of wines that are coming into your personal circle of trust, so to speak.
You know, in Michigan, we have a growing wine industry, don't we?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's huge. There, when I first came here 9-10 years ago to Michigan, you could count them without going into double digits or triple digits, but that's not the case now. We're well into triple digits, and there seems like there's something coming online every day. Same with the craft beer, obviously. So all these things adding to our enjoyment of life. But a lot of what we want to learn about wine, we're very blessed to be in Michigan wine country. So not only the wine show that we're going to have this weekend, but get out there into the wine country, which is less than an hour drive for most of us. And I'm talking genuine wine country experience, and do the same thing. Go to those tasting rooms, ask the questions. We're growing a lot of the same grape varietals here that they grow in France, Italy, Spain. So these wines that you think you're falling in love with in Europe, they're right here in our backyard. Go and explore them. And, man, an easy, inexpensive way to develop that palate.
You know, I have a couple of friends who have a hard time getting over that hump. That is to say, they are California and France. You know, these are their go-tos, and they have a hard time opening their minds to the idea that Michigan wine is on the same level. How do you get past that?
Well, you have to take the blinders off, and I love to give the example of California in 1977. In 1975, you couldn't give their wine away in California. Now we all think it's the greatest wine in the world, but in 1975, these wines were excellent, but they couldn't give them away. In 1977, you could no longer afford them. Something happened in the middle there called 1976 Paris Wine Challenge, where the United States for the first time beat the French at their own game, and suddenly the whole world was shocked and paid attention. Michigan's there right now. All we need is something like that to happen, but our wines are just as good. We've just got the same blinders on. We're starting to win international competitions, and I mean, we're winning them quite a bit, but we still have that prejudice I'm telling you, people outside of Michigan drink a lot more Michigan wine than people in the state do. I mean, we drink a lot of it, but the interest in Chicago restaurants and big market restaurants is intense, and because they don't have the prejudices against their own backyard, like California used to have.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there. I'm hopeful.
That's very interesting. All right. Well, if we come away with anything from this conversation, headed into the weekend, and maybe wine not, maybe you're having your own gathering. If you taste something and it's not your favorite, don't let that stop you.
Right, for sure. The gamut is endless. The palate for your palate is endless. There's colors, there's taste, there's sensations. There's a whole adventurous world out there of the palate exploration. So yeah, don't give up on it. Wine is sexy. Wine is cool. When I think of wine, I don't think of all the technical stuff. I think of little black dresses. I think of dancing. I think of good company, good food, good friends, and wine is a part of that great life adventure. So get out there, explore it, have a great time, and let wine be your friend. It has been a friend to humanity for thousands of years.
And that's why we called you, Terry the Wine Guru, because you'd pep us up for this.
Thank you.
All right. Terry Stingley, Terry the Wine Guru, a great friend, and we always appreciate talking to you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Richard.